It's another lovely night over at Crypto Cove. Welcome, one all. How are you doing tonight, or however it is where you are?
Good, thanks.
All right, excellent. So we have quite a bit to cover tonight. First, I'm going to go over the improvements to my tooling that I've made since the last time we did a check-in on this sort of thing. And then after that, we're going to go over any Q&A that anyone may have. So, like I said, there's a lot to cover. So we'll go ahead and get started. Don't need these. All right, so we'll indeed start at my tooling website. I'll have the link for it in the description for anyone unfamiliar with it. And I'm sure most everyone on the call is at least familiar with it. But with that, we'll go ahead and start going section by section. The first section that I want to point out is the support community development section. And I've actually made a couple changes here. The first change that I've made is since sending BNB, not BNB, PML in between members is no longer allowed. I've gone ahead and removed that button. And I've also added a button that takes you to a separate page to show various other donation options because I've had some people ask how they can donate other tokens or other coins on different chains. So if we go there, we can see that I now offer donation buttons for several different chains. Most of these are compatible with the EVM. So far we have Ethereum, Binance Smart Chain, Polygon, and Avalanche. All of these can be used through MetaMask. All you have to do is click on the button. Let's click on USDT on the BNB chain. And then you'll get a browser prompt to ask how much of that token you want to donate. So we'll say, for example, 1 USDT. We'll click OK. And then MetaMask will show up with a prompt for a transfer request for the amount of token that you put in and the token that you put in. We'll go ahead and hit cancel. And we can also try the same with other tokens, like, for example, USDT on the Polygon chain. So I'll go ahead and click that. And we'll we'll try 1 USDT again on the Polygon chain. We'll click OK. All right, it's probably just frozen a bit since I canceled the other one. But anyway, here, of course, we have several different options for folks to be able to donate, and there's plenty more in the pipeline. I have some thoughts for a GitHub sponsorship, and I also have some thoughts for supporting other tokens and coins for donation, such as Bitcoin, Litecoin, or other such tokens. Tron and Solana do have to use their own respective wallets if you're wanting to donate using either of these, because the APIs that MetaMask uses for Tron and Solana compatibility do not expose any sort of API or usage availability for me to be able to suggest a transaction using MetaMask on either chain. So for Tron, you'll want to use the Tron Link wallet, since I imagine most people that use Tron as their daily driver use Tron Link anyway. And for Solana, Phantom, he's usually the daily driver for most people, and the Phantom Vault does not expose any sort of API at all to be able to suggest a transaction. So with that, I'm sort of forced to just have all these buttons copy my Solana wallet address to your clipboard. And then from there, you can create a transaction manually in your Phantom wallet or other Solana wallets. And like I said, we have more to come in this section. Plenty of ideas still to come. So with that, we'll go ahead and go back. And are there any questions about that section before we move on? No? Okay, we'll move on. This one is going to be a bit of an easy one. The add all tokens to MetaMask button, that really hasn't changed at all. It still does the exact same thing. It still suggests all the tokens for you to add to your wallet if you're using MetaMask. And I have this set on my dummy wallet right now. So of course it's not showing anything for any of these values, but yeah, this does exactly the same thing that it's done for the past some time. This button was really the first core offering I had for this tool set. So you could say that this is what started it all. The RPC switcher has undergone a few different tooling resets, I could say. And I've also added a couple more RPC options. And now these are sorted by which of the big three RPC dependencies that they're free from. So that way, if we see another Cloudflare outage like we saw some time ago, we're ready. If we see another AWS, that's Amazon Web Services outage, we're ready. And if we see another Microsoft Azure outage, we're ready for that just fine. And then, of course, we also have the standard RPC options up here as well. Generally, I won't recommend any particular one of these over the other. I know that Public Node, Block Razor, and BLXR have been fairly popular ones for folks who use my tool set, but this is really meant for you to try multiple while you're here if the one that you're on right now isn't working. And from there, you can pick the one that ultimately works for you. And one thing that's changed about the way MetaMask interacts with RPC functionality is that they no longer allow any sort of automatic RPC changes using buttons like these at all. So the most I'm able to do is prompt a suggestion to add an RPC to your MetaMask, and then from there you can switch to that RPC manually. And I have general instructions on how to do that here. This isn't something that I unfortunately can fix on my end. This is a design decision that Consensus has made in order to try and make several processes more manual rather than automatic. Now, you could make all sorts of different arguments as to why that is, some of which would be valid, like, for example, to try and protect the users from accidentally changing their RPC to something malicious. But that also had the unintended consequence of making my job here harder. So thanks, y'all. All right. Are there any questions about that before we move on to the other section? All righty, we move on. Token charts. this is a relatively new section. And what this does is it's basically a row of buttons which link to our charts on 8space. Like, for example, if you click on the PML chart, that brings you to our PML chart on 8space. Same with any of the other tokens shown here. So, for example, we'll try PFI. That looks good. PFB. That's good. And PFS. Yep, that's working as well. And finally, PFG. And indeed, that is working. So you see that I have a bit of a flow going on here, ultimately. But with that in mind, are there any questions about this section before we move on to the next one? All righty, we'll move on. The token value calculator. This is very much the newest addition to my tool sets. And in fact, this one actually only went live on my main tooling site a couple hours ago. I finished putting the Latvia polish on it, so everything looks pretty good on it. Now, what this does is it allows you to calculate the USD value of an amount of our tokens using either the current price for that token or the price target for that token. Now, some of you may recall that I've said something about a formula now and again for how to do this calculation, and that formula is price or price target, depending on what you're wanting to calculate, times the amount of token. So if you're wanting to calculate the current price of a certain amount of token, you use the current price times that certain amount of token. And if you want to calculate that based off of the price target, you use the price target instead of the current price. But here I've actually roughly done that math for you and laid it out in a relatively user-friendly place. So let's take, for example, the amount of PML that I got from my guaranteed loans earlier that I did a video about. Is it? Ah, here it is. Okay, so we'll go ahead and copy that number. We'll go back to my tool set. We'll paste that into the token amount field. Then we'll go over to the PML chart. We'll refresh. And there's the current value. So we'll go ahead and copy that. And we'll paste it into the price USD field. We'll hit calculate. Right, and that amount is currently valued at $102.35 USD. I'll go ahead and reset, and I'll show you what that looks like if we select price target mode. In price target mode, you have your choice of any of our tokens to select, and it will fit the price USD at our current price targets. So for example, if we select PFI, that fits the price USD field at 500,000. You cannot change this. Similar story with PFB. It's set at 1 million. PFS is set at 2 million. PFG is set at 4 million. And PML is set at 2 million. So I'll go ahead and enter in that token amount again. And we'll click calculate. And that value was worth $1,548.64 when factoring in our price target for PML. So, like I said in that video I did earlier, do the math, except I've done the math for you now. Are there any questions about that before we move on? Actually, it looks like I see something in the chat, so let me go ahead and stop the share for a second. This is the one I'm interested in. Sorry, this is the one I'm interested in. Yes, indeed, it's a fantastic addition to the tool set. All right, so are there any questions about that bit of tooling? All right, I'll go ahead and share my screen again. And the last bit of tooling right now is the community document section. And again, this really hasn't changed much. You can go ahead and click on the open shared folder to open up the entirety of my documentation that I've written thus far. And then I have these three buttons to go to my most common guides, my most popular guides, rather. And with that, that's pretty much it for the tool sets. Let me just check my list here and make sure that I did indeed go over everything. Oh, that's right, the directory. Now, this is far from being ready for prime time yet, but one thing I have my eye on is a bit of a medium-term project, is to create a crypto services directory to store service a curated list of different services and providers in the crypto space, ideally to help users that are new to crypto navigate this particular ecosystem. And quite a bit of this isn't Web3 specific. So if you branch out beyond Web3, there's quite a bit that you'll see here. Now, again, this isn't ready at all for prime time yet. I just have some different services here that I've had so far, but there's really not much else to say about this section thus far. I'd say it's probably about 10-15% ready, but this will be a bit on the back burner insofar as what I consider my focus. But once it gets ready, I'd say it will absolutely help quite a few people, especially those who are crypto newbies. Are there any questions about that before we move on to the next bit of topic here? No? Am I doing my job too well, folks?
Yes, yes, indeed.
Alrighty, so with that, we'll go ahead and move on. And the next thing I wanted to talk about was the future of my tooling. So we've got comments here. Very organized. Thank you, Marjorie. So the next thing I want to talk about is my future plans for the tooling and ultimately what I have in mind. So I'll go ahead and share my screen again. And a couple things I have in mind for when funding allows is to get away from dependency on the big tech dependencies that I have currently. Like, for example, right now, this buttons page, my tool set is hosted and located using the GitHub subdomain, and it's hosted on GitHub servers. Now, GitHub is owned by Microsoft, so ultimately that means I'm beholden to Microsoft for this tool set, and I'm indeed at their mercy. So that's something that I'd ultimately like to change when funding allows from PML. Uh, I'd like to host my tool set on a VPS or a virtual private server. And I'd also like to get a domain that's number one, will obviously look more professional. And number two, will also make it so that I'm not beholden to GitHub, Microsoft, or any other big services. Because I think we've all seen what happens when that sort of thing happens, where you see a lot of dependencies on one thing. And another thing that I want to do in that stead is also host my documentation away from Google Drive because, again, Google Drive, obviously being a Google service, means that I'm dependent on Google for that entirely, and I'm at their mercy. So one thing I'd also like to do in that stead is I'd also like to host an instance of Nextcloud and connect that to the internet. And I'm ultimately planning on doing that by using a Raspberry Pi as a server. What this will allow me to do is it will allow me to host all my documentation locally on hardware that I own, operate, and control myself. So that way I'm not dependent on any sort of third party or anything of the sort, really. And a couple of things that I have in mind for the tooling itself are a swap service, a cross-chain swap service that will allow users to be able to swap, say, their Ethereum over to BNB or USDT or what have you. And I also have some thoughts for such a service in mind that will also serve as a gas station, for so to speak, to allow users to accidentally purchase USDT on the wrong chain to be able to hopefully do something about that in order to get that USDT over onto the right chain. So how does that sound? Any questions about that so far? No? Alrighty, so one other thing that I want to talk about insofar as the future of my tool set goes is that one thing I'd also like to do, depending on community interests, is also host and operate my own AI system to essentially allow me to help users 24/7 because I mean, I'm Gen Z, so being terminally online is just a way of life for me. But indeed, I'm still human, so it is a fact of life that I'll need to sleep at some point. So with that, I'll ultimately have in mind a small language model that I'll train with data from my guides and several other bits of data. And what that will ultimately be able to do is serve as a chatbot-like interface that will be able to answer all of your questions regarding crypto, pool funding, or anything of the sort. Now, right now I have two models in mind for this, although this may very well change by the time that I'm able to actually action this. And those models are Quen 2.5 and Llama 3.2. Now, both of these are at 1 billion instruction sets, or rather, I'd say Llama is at 1 billion instruction sets, and Quen 2 is at 1.5 billion. It's a limitation of the hardware, unfortunately, and I'm going to do the best I can to get as much out of that as possible. That's why I'm also going to be using an add-on board for the Raspberry Pi. And this is an AI bit of hardware on top. What this is it's an AI accelerator chip, as well as 8 GB of onboard RAM to supplement the Raspberry Pi. What this essentially allows the Raspberry Pi to do is run language models that are relatively small. That way, a user that's concerned about privacy, anonymity, or anything of the sorts can run AI models locally and work with them locally without having all their data uploaded to the cloud, uploaded to any sort of company or anything else that's going to be using your data in order to train future versions of their AI. Because some people still don't know this, unfortunately, but you know the chats that you have with OpenAI's ChatGPT, Google's Gemini, and etc., etc., etc. Ultimately, none of those are private. That company owns any data that you receive or generate from your conversation with that AI. And ultimately, they also use that data to improve future versions of the AI. But your data is not private if you're using it through an AI. The main exception to this, of course, being is if you're hosting it yourself. So that way your data doesn't go anywhere. And I'll of course have a lot of policies for that, but ultimately this is going to be much more private and much more secure than if you're trusting a big corporation with that data of yours. Now, this is something that has proved a bit controversial in the community when I tried a smaller version of this. Most people in the community don't know that I did have an AI chatbot set up at one point to try and do something similar to what I'm thinking of doing here, only I wasn't hosting it myself at that point. The idea at that point was really more of a proof of concepts more than anything else to see if the community would like that sort of thing. But it got used very, very little, and at this point, it's just abandonware at this point. It hasn't been updated since last July, and it probably won't be updated at all at this rate. All right, so are there any questions about that before we move on? I know that might be a bit controversial to some people, but I am genuinely interested in what the community would think of that.
I think privacy is super important, and I'm very fearful about collection of all this data and being disseminated. So I'm with you on that.
All right. Are there any other questions, comments, anything of the sort regarding anything we've gone through so far? No? Okay. Well, that's it for the toolset portion of the call. So now we move over into general Q&A. Now, this is the time for you to ask any question you may have about my tool sets regarding anything we've talked about, anything regarding proofing, or even if there's something about me you're curious to know. Whatever the case may be, now's the time to ask it. And I can see that Graham isn't on the call, so I definitely dodged a bit of a bullet there since he certainly had quite a bit of embarrassing stuff to ask.
How did you get involved, Hunted, with all this to begin with?
With crypto in general or pool funding?
Uh, Both.
So with crypto in general, it first started for me 14 years, almost 15 years ago now, actually. And I ultimately come from a tech background. So again, my terminally online status is indeed a bit of a badge of honor for me. But I did keep hearing about Bitcoin on several different forums that I was on. So at first, I just decided to take a quick look at as to what it was like or what sort of information I could find. And at the very beginning, I initially thought that it was just racketeering that money and it didn't have much of any staying power to it. that will never not be funny to me. But as I started to read more and more about it, I started seeing that, hey, maybe there's something to this. And then I started discovering several different altcoins, like, for example, Litecoin. And then we had the advent of other tokens or coins, such as Ethereum. And ultimately, just went from there. I kept learning as much as I could, seeing crypto as in many places as I could. And all that was essentially me being self-taught and just being curious about this new world that we're in with cryptocurrency. Because I'll tell you, when I first started looking at it seriously, it's just sort of felt like peering through the looking glass is the best term that I have for it. So that's what got me started, and that's part of what's kept me interested all this time because there's still quite a bit that can be done in crypto, and there's still quite a bit to learn. I learn something new pretty much every day, and I'm absolutely still excited to be here with crypto. So you went from a skeptic to a believer, exactly. And for poolfulling itself, so I've been involved with several different crypto type programs, and poolfulling was one that Ken introduced not too shortly before I joined. And but by Ken I mean Ken Russo, in case some of you on the call don't know, he's one of the relatively big promoters in poolfulling. And initially I just thought that I was going to be a regular user, and I arguably could have done my own onboarding for that matter, but I did want to get on a call with Ace, and Lisa was also on that call, as well as my immediate sponsor. And we spent more time talking than we really did doing anything. It honestly felt like I was just talking with some old friends shooting the breeze. So that was part of what got me hooked, so to speak. And I really loved the initial concept, although I could definitely see a bit of room for improvements in some of their ways of marketing it and some of their onboarding strategies. We've definitely made leaps and bounds since then, but yeah, that's how I got started, and I'm still here mostly because I really love the community.
Thank you.
Alrighty. Are there any other questions regarding anything at all?
So,
I've got a question, Hunt.
All right, go ahead, Scott.
Regarding PML, I understand obviously that the ones that have been members, whether they're still members or they've already left because they've been blocked, they obviously have a limited amount of PML. But of course, once they know what pool funding is all about, even if they're not a member, they're still able to go and buy PML when it's low and sell it when it's high. So how are we going to deal with that? Because at the moment, I think that's what's happening, isn't it?
That's happening with a small amount of sellers, most of which are involved in the WOTC cluster. And insofar as what we're going to do about that, technically speaking, there's really nothing we can do about it because we want our tokens to be available on the open market ultimately. We don't want any sort of technical restrictions placed on any of our tokens. There are there are some different communities that try to do that, and that limits their excuse me, that limits their growth exponentially. And if we start doing that, if we start telling people what they could and couldn't do with what's ultimately the tokens and money in their wallets and backs it up with technical measures, then that's a shift away from a sovereign store mindset that we ultimately want to have over into an authoritarian store mindset. And
Mhm.
that's the very thing that we're trying to get away from, is it not?
Yep, sure, yeah. Mhm.
So if we try to do anything like that, then that would be a death spiral for pool funding. And I'll tell you right now that I'd be one of the first rats to leave the ship.
Mm.
I'll drop the mic right there.
So really, I mean, I see the only answer really at the moment is we do need a few people that are going to come in and buy $3,000 or $6,000 worth of PML so that it ramps it up quickly to a point where even if the sellers sell, it's not going to affect it as much as it is at the moment.
Right. That's part of the reason why we have the PML stars promo. Ultimately, we want to get to a point where we can price the sellers out of the market and get to the point where our tokens look toxic to sellers.
Mhm.
Because
Okay.
what WotC is doing with the buying and selling that they're doing is, well, they're relatively smart about. They're doing dollar cost averaging, buying when the token is lower from different people selling, then selling when it goes up higher. So that's how they lower the average price of their buy for the amount that they have. And that's split across several different wallets. So it's a bit difficult for us to track them all, but we do know that it all stems from just one member.
Mhm. Mhm. Okay, one other question regarding the coins at the moment. So when a new person joins, they're still when they make payments, they're still getting the old coin. Is that right?
No, everything is going to shift into the new tokens, including the amounts that get placed into holdings while we're in this limbo period with the the old tokens being discontinued for purposes on the main pool playing system, but the new tokens not being launched as of yet. So
So
all that is going to transfer over to the new tokens.
okay, so even the new ones coming in, although it although whatever's in their back office will be added to the new tokens.
Mhm.
But they won't be in a contract, will they, for a year?
Yeah, they won't be in a contract for a year, so part of that will essentially be new cycles for new tokens. And essentially, that when we did the transition over, a new 9 day countdown started. We may or may not make that depending on where things go with PML, but I have great hopes that we will. Of course, if we don't, we'll need to make some adjustments, but we'll sort that out if and when we get to that point.
Okay. All right, thank you. That's my two questions.
I'm just wondering, is WotC a wallet? Is that what, like, in a different country that I'm not aware of?
WotC refers to the username, and it's it's the only username we have. It's the only identifier we have for an originator wallet address that's sent PML to a lot of different other wallets. And they also have a hub that's, we believe, was involved in a couple different issues that we've had with a few different smart contracts that we deployed. I don't want to go too much into that for operational security purposes, but I'll just say that they have quite a bit of PML at their disposal. It's spread out across several different wallets, and they've been using that ultimately to be an adversary to us right now.
Okay, so these were people that were involved prior to all this.
Well, the WotC TADS addresses themselves is just one person, so
Oh, okay.
It's one person controlling all those addresses. You can sort of think of WotC as the puppet master, so to speak.
Okay. All right. Because I wasn't sure what it was. Yeah. All right.
Although we do know that a couple other members were involved, and I've recently spoken with Ace at length about that, and we're definitely are taking measures against those members. So hopefully that will help flush anything else out for us.
So I wonder what their motive is, because I mean, other than just hatred for, I don't know, like why, if they would just join us, it would be advantageous to them. So I don't understand their
They're
motive.
selfish. They're selfish and greedy.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just as Marjorie says, it takes all
Yeah.
kinds in the crypto world, unfortunately.
Yep. All right.
Yeah,
So maybe,
for
Sir
every good
Hunter, they're using other phone, right? They won't connect that wallet to their PF account. They will use probably other phones.
Yeah, they're probably using several different wallets and using several different accounts. Like, you know how you can create multiple different accounts on MetaMask, but only one is linked with full Fling at all.
Yeah.
That's probably what they're doing.
Okay.
Although
All
it
right.
won't, although it wouldn't surprise me if there were a couple more people involved, because, well, we had a couple members involved. And again, I don't want to go too much into this, but I think I have a pretty good idea as to another person that was involved that's been a problem for us recently. I'm not gonna say who that is. I'm not going to go into detail, so don't ask.
I don't
But
think you have to tell us.
yeah, yeah, and
Yeah.
don't say their name here. Don't say anything.
Yeah.
I understand.
But yeah, sometimes it's so unfair. He keeps on selling, but we behave well and we just wait until when.
But yeah, like I said, it takes all kinds in crypto, and that definitely cuts both ways, unfortunately. I sometimes say it as a bit of a joke, a bit of dark humor, but ultimately, if my moral compass was crooked, right now I'd probably be living in a villa in a non-extradition country somewhere.
Well, thank God you're not.
All right,
Thank you,
so
Sir Hunter.
absolutely. All right, so are there any other questions regarding anything?
So there's no new value to the new tokens yet, Hunter, correct?
The new tokens have been launched yet, so they don't have value to them as of yet because they don't exist yet. But when they launch, they're going to launch at our price targets for our old tokens. So the replacement for PFI, well, rather, I shouldn't say replacement since PFI will still be around. So the new version of PFI is going to start out at 500K. The new version of PFE is going to start out at 1 million. The new version of PFS is going to start at 2 million. And the new version of PFG is going to start at 4 million. And usually what I've been doing when I refer to them is use the next letter in the alphabet for them is, placeholders. So like, for example, instead of PFB, it's PFC. These are probably not going to be the names. I have no knowledge of the names whatsoever. If I did, I'm sure all of you know that Ace would swear me to secrecy. Alrighty. Next question.
Well, Hunter, right now we're getting paid in PFG for our training. And I have a hard time trying to track it, like after we get paid, how do you see it on the B scan? I get confused with all that.
All right, so let me show you an example. Let me go ahead and share my screen, and I'll go ahead and pull my wallet up. So I got a catch-up rounds of paid training, as I'm sure most folks in the community that are regulars on the calls have gotten. And right now, the amounts of PFG that you get per training is fixed at 0.0005 of one PFG. That's been put in place ever since the value of PFG dips below $1 million. Ultimately, the concept is for you to get $50 worth of PFG, but that's been set here at $50 worth of PFG, a valuation of $1 million for one PFG. Now, once we get above 1 million in terms of the value of PFG, then we can explore shifting that so that's $50 worth of value at whatever the current valuation of it is, but right now it's fixed there. And all these will come from the same wallet address. I have tabs here, but let me go ahead and go to it so you can see it. And here's the wallet address it comes from. And we can see the paid training distribution out to all the members who qualify for it. And yeah, I'd say that's relatively straightforward. This definitely goes on and on. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, so you could actually see if your wallet is listed there, huh?
Yeah, you can see if your wallet's address has received paid training, although usually it'll probably be better for you to check your own wallet entry on BSC scan, because for most users, they won't see the tagging system that I use, because that's a private tagging system I use using the private tag feature in BSC scan. Let me show you what that looks like if I use a private window. So let me go ahead and copy this URL, open up a private window. All right, so I'm not logged into BSC scan, so you can see that we're back to no tagging, and you can see all the wallet addresses here. So it's better to check your own wallet address entry rather than looking for it in the token transfers here in the distribution wallet.
Thank you.
Because that private tagging system is a system that I've spent several months improving and adding to. And actually, let me take a look at how many I'm up to now. One sec here. I have 1,355 addresses tagged. So if you're a regular in the community, or for that matter, even if you haven't been around for a while, chances are I know who you are and I have your wallet address. And I've used that, number one, to help with tagging, because that definitely helped with investigation as to what went where. And that's definitely been helpful for folks in the community that I've been helping. But it also helps a lot in settler investigations, because that helps me dig deeper into what went where without time to dig much deeper, to the point where ultimately I can see a lot of information at a glance. Because what we don't lack for is data here. What we need is information. And that's something that I've spent quite a lot of time working from in order to sort all that data into information for myself, in order to help me understand the community better and to help support our operations better. And I've also gotten some information that the executive team is also starting to use that pirate tagging system as well. So I'm definitely having some good effects. And once they start growing their own tagging system as well, that'll definitely be helpful to the entirety of the community as well. So I definitely did start something a bit there, but it's something that's going to help all of us over time. Yes, you are like P.F. Sherlock Holmes. You're not the first to say it, although some people say that I'm an FBI agent, some people say that I'm CIA. It's it's honestly it's just amusing to me more than anything else to see all the different analogies people come up with. All right, next question. And now I feel like I'm in Crypto University and you're the professor.
I have a
Professor
quick
Hunter. That's a new one.
I have a quick question.
Okay.
Um, the reason why the new coins haven't been minted is to protect the coins from being devalued. Is
Right.
that why?
So right now we're using this time partially to help root out sellers, but we're also using this time to try and push the price of PML up, because ultimately, if we can do that, then that will make the concepts of selling our tokens even less attractive, because people will have that cash flow coming in. Because ultimately, our plan with PML is for you to be able to cash out up to $3,000 a month from that PML. That's ultimately what the goal of PML was from the very beginning. We haven't been able to reach that as of yet because we've had people fighting us, but we're closer than you might think. And I did a video earlier on that went over that a fair bit, but
Hmm?
yeah, that's the main reason why we haven't launched the new tokens yet, because we're trying to put stuff in place to the point where ultimately we'll have a community foundation and a culture in our community to where the idea of selling your tokens, it just doesn't even enter your mind at all. That's our goal here, because ultimately what we're going to do with our tokens is extract value from them multiple times through partnerships with platforms such as Aave.
Right.
So
So we'll
with
leverage
that,
our coins so that we can borrow against them.
mhm.
Yeah.
And with that leverage that we get from that value extraction, you'll be able to extract value from those coins multiple times. Whereas if you decide to sell them, you're just getting value from them once.
Right. So it doesn't make sense to sell them. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I
They'll need to
understand.
see.
Right.
Go ahead.
No, I understand that. And I just wish that, yeah, I guess it takes all kinds. And there's a lot of crazy people in crypto, and they don't want to see. It's almost like being in a centralized bank that is abusing their customers. You know, it's it's very, in a way, frustrating because um it's just, yeah, I just don't understand why people are doing this. I just don't get it. Just just to be evil, really.
Yeah, unfortunately, we have plenty of people that can't see forest through the trees and can't see what we're doing here, really. So
Yeah.
that's part of the reason.
Yeah.
I'd,
So
I'd,
yeah.
I'd like to add something, Mary.
Mm-hmm.
They're not necessarily evil at all. They're just traders. Traders have a different mindset. They're not interested in holding. They're interested in making maybe 10, 20, $50 for each transaction. And they're doing this multiple times on multiple coins and that's how they make an income. That's not necessarily being evil. It's this, they're just traders, and traders, that's what they do.
Okay. You mean, so when you say traders, you mean they're trading coins. They're not traders like in the for
Yeah.
the,
Yeah,
Well,
in fact,
well,
there's
they're trading coins, yeah, and they
yeah.
basically they're not interested in holding on coin. They just want to come in and make a small amount on each one.
I
But if they
mean,
do that multiple times a day, they can make $100 a day or $50 a day or whatever, and they're happy with that. That's what their income is.
so
It's
if
not
they,
necessarily doing evil.
right, okay, so if somebody explained to them like listen, if you just hold up here, you could get a lot more money if you just wait. Uh,
well,
Um,
but part of the problem
Yeah,
there is most of the folks who are seriously trading arts tokens that have been pool putting, and we know that arts trying to scalp and trying to hurt us that way. Those sports honestly aren't even in pool playing at all, so we really don't really have a way to reach them unless they
oh,
come to us.
okay, so that's what I guess I'm trying to, they're not even in pool funding.
Right,
So, yeah, so they don't care about the community. Yeah,
right. They don't care about the community. They don't have a reason to care about the community.
right. I wish there was something we can do that would be like a temporary, not like just a temporary hold of almost, you know, until we reach the price, the price that we want. So then, and then open it up, again, like a temporary
Well,
hold.
Well, again, any sort of technical measures that we try to implement on our tokens run completely antithetical to what we're trying to do here.
I understand that. I mean, I
And
do. And I
and
yeah,
go
yeah.
ahead.
No, I understand that 100%. I just like,
And also that
yeah.
doesn't actually solve the problem really, because the selling itself is a symptom, not the disease. The
Hmm.
disease is we still have some people that still have that mindset in the community that we've been talking about here, and
Mm-hmm.
that's a real problem. So that's why we've been spending so much time on education. That's why we've been spending so much time on so many efforts to try and get people to listen. That's part of the reason why paid training was even introduced in the first place, by the way.
Right, right.
So what we're trying to do is we're trying to treat the disease, not the symptom.
Well,
And
yeah, I guess we need major surgery.
and it's and ultimately the way we treat that disease is ultimately by having a community to where the very thought or concept of selling is repellent. And indeed, that does mean we'll probably lose a peer here and there, but what we'll have will be much higher quality ultimately.
Mm-hmm.
Part of it is education, part of it is separating the wheat from the chaff, and part of it is supporting the strong and teaching and training the weak. And that's also part of why I'm here doing this as well.
Well, I thank you.
That's what Crypto Cove is for.
Yep, yep. I thank you very much, Hunter.
Once price stability is reached, won't it be advantageous to trade? Yes, it will be. Or rather, it will probably be more so since you don't see as many big price dips that occur. All right. Are there any other questions, comments, things of that nature? No? All right. It looks like I did indeed do my job too well again. I guess this is rubbing off on me. All right. So if there aren't any other questions, comments, things of that nature, we'll go ahead and start closing out. And I do want to say a couple things before we close out this first edition. The first thing is for folks out here on the call right now and the folks listening on YouTube. Oftentimes, people ask if they can donate to me personally after the Crypto Code meetings I put on, because I operate largely independently. I'm not part of the full-fledged official staff or part of the official system. I'm doing this ultimately because I truly enjoy sharing my knowledge and I truly care about the community. Please never feel pressured to donate, but if you so wish, donations are gratefully accepted at the wallet address that I'm about to put into the Zoom chat. And for those watching on YouTube, I'll have that wallet address in the video description down below, as well as the address to my toolset where you can also donate there if you have any other tokens that you wish to donate. And for those of you watching on YouTube, YouTube tells me that most of the views I get are still coming from people that aren't subscribed to my channel. So if you like the memes I do here and you like these recordings, then a subscribe to the channel would definitely help because that would help other members of Pool Flame discover this bit of a hidden gem as well. And of course, if you like the video, you can hit that button. If you disliked it, well, you can hit that button, I guess. But anyway, so with that, we'll go ahead and close out as per tradition. Does anyone think I'll get it right this time?
Not a chance.
Well, at least you're honest. Alrighty.
Okay, good
Three,
night. Thank you.
3, 2, 1. To the moon! Yes! And it's on the recording. I did
Thank
it.
you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you
Uh,
always, Sir
yes.
Hunter.
All right, I'll go ahead and start the recording.